Good evening to everybody. This is Saturday, the 8th of May. This is Christopher Duigan coming to you from our home at KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. The next in our online live stream program presented by Music Revival. This is, of course, coming across to various platforms. If you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or Vimeo or at our website. I can tell you that Vimeo is the source of the actual feed, and so that is actually the best production. It's the best, most reliable production. I've noticed that sometimes we are getting increased numbers of dropouts on Facebook and on YouTube, which don't occur on Vimeo itself. So if you have access, if you have the bandwidth, it's a bit more difficult to access, it seems, but it is the most reliable to access there, and that you'll be able to see all of our previous videos as well, our previous live stream sessions. This evening's program, I have another classical program. I had advertised that I was going to be playing the music of Franz Liszt, and I am going to postpone that by a week. I'm not playing the Liszt program this evening. It is a particularly demanding, very challenging, and very exciting program. It is going to be worth the wait, I can assure you. But rather than take a chance and just provide increased stress and risks for myself, I am going to produce and present to you another program of music, some of my favorite pieces that I know very well, quite well, I hope. Scarlatti, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, some music by Schubert, Brahms, and Debussy. And so I'm hoping that you'll be able to join us for the next hour in this in-concert session and enjoy the music with us. I'm going to start off with two Scarlatti sonatas. Domenico Scarlatti, Italian Baroque 17th century composer, wrote, as I've always said, about 500 of these short pieces, and I'm going to play two that I'm particularly fond of in E major, very royal fanfare, a beautiful sunny autumnal atmosphere. There seem to be many autumnal atmospheres in this evening's program. And the second piece, a very, very fast and very jaunty, very exciting little piece of music full of surprises, of Sonata in G major, K425. Two sonatas there by Domenico Scarlatti, starting off this evening's in-concert session. Sonatas in E major, K380, and in G major, K425. Very fast, tricky, finger-twisting pieces, I will say. But there's always something incredibly magical about Scarlatti's music. Has a certain effervescence, a joy, and an exuberance which I think you find nowhere else. In Italian, in Spain, I mean, what fun you can ask for. I'm going to move on to Sonata by Ludwig van Beethoven, one of his most famous and celebrated compositions, in fact, one of the most famous pieces of piano music of all time, and this is the Moonlight Sonata. As I always say, the title of the Moonlight was not Beethoven himself. It came from the critic Ludwig Rellstab, who several years after Beethoven's death said that he was reminded of the Lake Lucerne in the moonlight on a very calm and beautiful evening, and the moonlight shining on the lake reminded him and seemed fitting for the opening atmosphere, this very calm and gentle mood in the first movement. Beethoven, we find at this time, it's at a point in his life when he's really discovering his encroaching deafness. He's really coming to terms with this. I don't know if it's actually worse for him to have lost his hearing overnight completely, or as it happened for him, he lost it little bit by little bit. It was an increasing loss of hearing, if you can say that, over many, many years. And I think it was incredibly frustrating and annoying to him every time he tried to play or compose or perform, not knowing exactly how much of his hearing he could rely on. This frustration and this torment and the sadness which he experiences at this time and through all this is really expressed in this music. And one of the things which I realize these introductions which I give in these in-concert sessions, as useful as they are always quite brief. And so I am going to be presenting a new series of programs where I'm going to really be dissecting and talking a lot more about the individual pieces and really pulling them apart and giving you an insight into various aspects of it. Because one of the things I think that's also very important, we often forget how these compositions fit together and how one heralds a new style or one composition epitomizes a particular style. And what's unique and I think extraordinary about this piece, the sonata itself, is that it really produces a new sound and a new style of music making. It's really Beethoven saying, and he says in the opening, it's a sonata quasi una fantasia, as though it's a fantasy. And that sense of fantasy is really about being in the moment, about being emotionally caught in the moment, and expressing the mood and the feeling as he experiences in the moment and as the pianist experiences it. And this is very much a leading forward. It was a very new idea and leading forward to the idea of the Romantic movement, and particularly if you look at a composer like Franz Liszt. And next week I will be playing music for you where those moments of despair and ecstasy are epitomized in Liszt's music, even as a depiction of heaven and hell itself. And so this concept of the pianist really experiencing a mood and projecting that mood into the music in the moment, as I say, is quite a new and groundbreaking idea, and Beethoven expresses it right here in this moment. So the first movement, the beautiful, serene, calm moment of depth, of sorrow, of despair. He responds to his loss of hearing and the frustrations in his life in the last movement, which is really the bulk of the piece. It's really the working out of the material, but in fits of absolute rage. And in between that, he couldn't really, I suppose, go from moments of absolute despair into rage. And there's a moment of denial, contemplation, or sorbet, you might say, between these two extremely intense music. He has a little minuet-like movement, a tiny little piece of music that's very pure, very simple, and very staid before it bursts into the final presto as fast as possible with great agitated and leads into the most terrorizing climax. So this is the Sonata, Opus 27, number 2, the Sonata quasi una fantasia, known as the Moonlight Sonata by Ludwig van Beethoven. That was the Moonlight Sonata in its entirety, all three movements. Many people only know the very sustained and atmospheric first movement, a movement of great depth, the depiction of moonlight on the lake, Lucerne as described by the Ludwig Ralstab, the music critic Ludwig Ralstab, but not Beethoven's idea, but certainly a very challenging and, as I say, a very pivotal piece of music that really turns music on its head. And I will be talking more about that piece in a future session and how it really changes so much about musicians, piano playing, concertizing, etc. I'm going to move on to a selection of three pieces that will make up the rest of the program. First of all, composition by Franz Schubert, then a piece of music by Johannes Brahms, and ending off with a beautiful, one of my favorites, beautiful piece of music by Claude Debussy, the early 20th century French composer. I'd like to start off with Schubert's, one of his three Drei Klavierstucke. It's some of the very last piano music, very last music, in fact, that Schubert wrote in his life. He had written a series of impromptus, another series, two sets of 4 impromptus, and it is thought that maybe he was working on a third set of these pieces, and he died before he completed them. And the first, for me, is a particularly interesting piece of music. I really like the exuberance, the energy, and the outgoing brilliance, you might even say. There's sort of urgency in the music, particularly in the outer sections. In the middle section, there's a very extended, broad melody that takes place in the lower part of the region of the piano, which gives it a very rich atmosphere. The second composition I'd like to play for you from the set of 6 piano pieces, or 6 Klavierstucke, opus 118 by Johannes Brahms. And this is a piece of music, the intermezzo, the second of the 6 pieces. Yes, Lucy, and it's your favorite, I'm sure. The second of the 6 pieces, and it's a very beautiful intermezzo in A major. And then the last composition, which I'll play for you, a completely different style, different atmosphere, but very beautiful music by the French composer Claude Debussy, the Reflections in the Water, Reflets dans l'eau, from a selection of pieces called Images, or Images, that he created that really brought together the idea of creating images in music. And Andrew's going to bring up a beautiful artwork, an image, which we're able to show you. I've always talked about this, that Debussy's music is so synonymous and links so beautifully with the contemporary French artist Monet, Claude Monet of the time, contemporary of his, and this is his beautiful water lilies, a series of water lilies, or one of them, one of many that he composed. And the same atmosphere, for me, it seems to be described in the music, as you'll see in this artwork. In the music, Debussy creates washes of sound, washes of color. They're not specific aspects. There's a glint, a hint of sunlight, a reflection of a sun ray, a bit of movement, but generally a very calm atmosphere with light reflecting off water and a kind of 3-dimensional effect. You're not really always sure what you're looking at, and in fact, if you see those paintings in real life and look at them very closely, you'll see it's all about illusion, and many of the brilliant markings in the paintings are actually quite severe gashes. They're very sort of rough strokes, but from a distance they meld together. So these are 3 very unique pieces: the Klavierstucke number 1, D946 by Schubert, Intermezzo opus 180 number 2 by Brahms, and Reflets dans l'eau, or Reflections in the Water, by Claude Debussy. That was Reflections in the Water, or Reflets dans l'eau, from the Image Series 1 by the French early 20th century composer Claude Debussy. Before that, I played for you the Intermezzo, Opus 118, number 2, from 6 piano pieces by Johannes Brahms, and starting off that selection of 3 with the first of 3 piano pieces published or written in the very last months of Franz Schubert's life. Very enigmatic, but full of very interesting and fascinating ideas. I hope you've enjoyed this selection of music this evening. It does bring a close to our program tonight. As I said in the beginning, I was advertising and I had intended to present a program of Franz Liszt for this evening's program, but it is simply not ready. And I need another week. I need more time to bring all this together, and I can guarantee it's going to be pretty wonderful. It's very exciting, some very challenging music. And next Saturday you will hear the Liszt program. On Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, we have our question and answer session. I have a few very interesting questions coming through, and if you'd like to hear more about those, about how I choose the programs, what's involved in memorizing at the piano, why different keys, or why composers write in different keys, why a composer would write in D major rather than C major or something like that, what the difference between a minuet is and a waltz. Various questions have come through, and if you have any questions, please do send them through. This is Wednesday's session. I am going to be playing music in between that and demonstrating as much as I can with various examples. But I'm sure it's going to be an interesting session indeed. I'm just wondering what's happened to little Lucy. We haven't seen little Lucy. Lucy, come Luce. Here she comes. Come on. Everyone wants to see Lucy. There you are, little Luce. Oh, here's Frida as well. I didn't see you, Fried. I'm so sorry. There we go, little Luce. How are you doing today, Lucy? Just fine. Yes, you like the Debussy. You think that Reflections in the Water is a very, yes, I agree. It's a very nice piece. And yes, yes, you actually quite like the Beethoven too. You've heard it before many times. Do you think you can play it with your little Lucy paws? Huh? Hey, little Luce. Maybe you can play Furry Leaves. Maybe Furry Leaves or Furry Paws would be your piece of music. Yeah. That's what you would like to play. We can take you for piano lessons. Little Lucy, the piano playing Dachshund. Yeah. Who else is coming to say? Is Friedy coming? Come on, Friedel. Friedel Duft. Come on. Come on, Frieds. Come on. And where's the Winnie Pop? Winnie Pop, Winnie Pop, Winnie Pop. Oh, I'm having a serious wardrobe malfunction now. My buttons are popping open as I'm bending over. Hello, Frieds. How are you doing? Winnie Pop, Winnie Pop. Frieds, what have you been up to today? Oh, just lots of lying around in the sun. Beautiful day today by the pool. The cushions were out. Sunshine. We had biscuits and milk in the morning. And we chased things around the garden a little bit. And then some lovely music. And what a beautiful time, Friedel. Oh, it's been a great day. Well, that brings, oh, you've got a little paw up. That brings us to the end of this evening's session. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's just gone 7 o'clock. Look after yourselves. Keep well. Stay well. Thank you to Andrew for his technical support. And we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday and next Saturday for our very exciting program of music by Franz Liszt. There we go. Oh, serious wardrobe issues here.